Did you ever dream when you grew up that you'd ever become such a famous person?
Not at all. I did dream, but not about that.
How do you keep things in perspective when you receive a medal like that, or you're honored throughout the country as one of the great teachers and one of the great statesmen, one of the great coaches of all time? How do you keep perspective?
Well, you have to realize that it wasn't you. It was the people that helped you along the way. And, for example, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't had fortunate enough to have a lot of great basketball players who won a number of national championships. I wouldn't have been here if they hadn't have done that. And it wasn't. I hope I had a little help, but without the talent, you'd never be here. So you can't let those things carry you away. I think the strength of a person's character is their ability to accept both the highs and the lows and not let either one of them have an adverse effect on them. If you permit it, either the highs or the lows, if they affect you, it'll be adversely, it won't be positively.
Well, we all know how famous you are, but I don't know if a lot of people realize that there's a statue in your hometown that they have that represents you, I guess. And would you tell us about that statue? I know it's a little embarrassing for you, but can you tell us about that?
Well, where I went to high school in Indiana, they've named the high school gymnasium after me, and the street that leads into it, and they've had a life-size statue. But in the delivering of the life-size statue, the head broke off. And they couldn't find the sculpture. He had left, passed away or something, that had done the sculpture, so they had to get somebody else. So they sent a picture of someone. It was supposed to be of me, but it wasn't. And they put it up there, and my daughter doesn't like it at all. I tell her, be quiet, honey, so it's better looking than I am. So
Coach, as a foundation for your success growing up, who was your greatest influence?
My father, beyond any question of doubt, in almost every way. Mother too, but primarily father.
And early on, your father gave you something that turned out to provide for you a lifelong foundation. 2 sets of 3s, 7-point creed. Could you share that with everyone here today?
Well, the 2 sets of 3 that he gave were don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses, just do the best you can. And the other one is don't lie, don't steal, and don't, what's the third one?
Cheat.
Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. He said if you never lie, you won't have to remember what you said. So that's very important. And then when I graduated from grade school, the 8th grade, my father gave me a card and said, son, try to live up to the things on this card. On one side was a verse by Reverend Henry Van Dyke that said, 4 things a man must learn to do if he would make his life more true. To think without confusion clearly, to love his fellow man sincerely, to act from honest motives purely, to trust in God and heaven securely. And on the other side was a 7-point creed. Be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, you're going to be true to all others. Some of you may be familiar with one of Shakespeare's famous plays where Polonius is speaking to his son Laertes, who's leaving home on him, go out on the world. His own dad thinks he should give him some advice. He knows he won't listen, but he thinks he should give him some advice. So he says, neither a borrower nor a lender be, for a loan oft loses both itself and friend. And borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. And if you are true to yourself, you're going to be true to all others. Next was help others. There's no greater joy than helping others. I think everyone in here would admit, if you stop and think, the greatest joy you can have is to do something for someone else without any thought of something in return. That gives you real joy. Then we had drink deeply from good books, especially the Bible. There's a lot of good literature out of there. There's a lot of chaff too, but you don't have to use it, and don't judge books by the cover either. It's what's inside. It's like what you are. As my wife used to say, Lord, make me beautiful within. That's the important thing. Then the next one is probably what I've used more than anything else in developing my own philosophy of teaching is make each day your masterpiece. Just do the best you can each day. Don't lose the day. You can't do a thing about yesterday. It's gone. It'll never return. You can't change anything. Tomorrow can only be affected by today. Make each day your masterpiece. I stress that so much with my players. One of them who writes me poems, I love poetry, is Swen Nader. And one verse of it, it's rather long, I won't bore you with all of it, but last verse is, Coach, you're a hunter and a seeker, not for silver or for gold, not for treasure or for pleasure or for anything that's sold. You're a connoisseur of living as you move along life's way with no worries of tomorrow where you have found today. That's what we should all do, find today. I think the next one is make friendship a fine art. Don't take friendship for granted. Work at it. It's like marriage. Both sides must work at it. It's not friendship with someone doing something nice for you. It's a nice person. It's friendship when you do for each other. The next one was build a shelter against a rainy day. And he wasn't thinking of an earthly shelter. He was thinking of eternal shelter. The life you lead. Remember when Socrates was unjustly imprisoned, facing imminent death, and he was at ease, he was at peace with himself, and the jailers could not understand that and said, why aren't you preparing for death? And he said, I've been preparing for death all my life, but the life I've led. I believe that's what Dad meant when he said, prepare your life for a rainy day. And then the last was, give thanks for your blessings and pray for guidance every day. And we certainly should do that. I think oftentimes we accept our blessings. Our disappointments we don't accept. Those they should belong to somebody else, not to us. But we must accept our blessings and give thanks for them and recognize, as Abraham Lincoln said, if we magnified our blessings the way we magnify our disappointments, we'd all be a lot happier. And certainly that's true.
Coach, I got to know this. My mom and dad sit over there, and I know they disciplined myself and my brothers often because we were outrageous kids. Did your father ever discipline you?
Oh, yes. But Dad was such that to disappoint him, I'd rather he'd whip me. I'd rather he'd give me a good whipping one time, and he gave me a good whipping, only one time, and he gave me a good whipping, and I deserved it, but it taught me a lesson. And my older brother and I were cleaning out the stables on the farm, and my older brother pitched for manure over in my face. I was a little upset. I went after him. I did put down the pitchfork. I didn't use it, but I made the mistake of what I called him. My dad overheard it, and that's what he was upset about. And I don't think I've used the word of profanity since that time. That's been a number of years ago, but he gave me a good whipping. I think he gave my brother a harder one, and he gave me a pretty good one. I had it coming. I knew it was nothing of it, but a harsh word from Dad, he did have it, Dad. My dad was one of the kindest, gentlest, never had a bad word to say about anybody, never used a word of profanity, never had a bad word to say. His sons we'd try to catch him, we couldn't do it.
How about today, disciplining children? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, remember why you discipline. You discipline to help, to prevent, to correct, to improve. You do not discipline to punish. Punishment oftentimes antagonizes, and it's difficult to get productive results when you antagonize. Now, I do think that one of the best inspiration things we can do for a person is a pat on the back. We all love a pat on the back, but sometimes it has to be a little lower and a little harder. But, I think denial of privileges is probably one of the best forms of discipline.
How about in motivating our children? What are your thoughts? You're a great motivator, world-renowned. What are your thoughts about motivating children?
Love them. Love them. Our most important word in our language is love. We all need to do it. Love them. Remember that a bell isn't a bell until you ring it. A song isn't a song until you sing it. And the love that is in us wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. Love.
Coach, how about from a personal standpoint, you have a very unique definition of success.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share your definition of true success in life?
Well, this came about shortly after I had graduated from Purdue University and had entered the teaching profession. I didn't like the way that many parents were judging the success of their youngsters in my English classes. They all wanted their youngsters to have an A or B, and that's all right, but don't make them feel a failure if they don't get that. Some just simply can't do it. I didn't like that way of judging, and I wanted to come up and find out something that would help me become a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision something to which to aspire rather than just a higher mark in the classroom or more points in some athletic endeavor. And here again, I recall what Dad had tried to teach. Never try to be better than someone else. Learn from others because you'll never know a thing you do not learn from someone else in one way or another. And most of all, never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's under the power of every one of us. We're not the same as far as ability is concerned. We're not the same as size. We're not the same as looks. We do not have the same backgrounds. We may not have the same things with which to work, but we're all absolutely equals, having the opportunity to make the most of what we have and always trying to improve it. That's within our own possibilities. And then I ran across a very simple verse about that time that said, "At God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed," he cried. "The Master said, thou didst thy best." That is success. That plus recollection of a definition of success that had been held in a class many years prior to that helped me form my own definition of success, which I coined in 1934. Success to me is peace of mind, attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. Everyone can do that. Everyone can make that effort. It's what you think of yourself is far more important than what others think. It's like character and reputation. Your character is what you really are, and that's far more important than your reputation, which is merely what you're perceived to be by others. And that's why I came up with the definition of peace of mind, attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to do the best of which. I see on the table the book Inch and Miles for children's. And now for children, you change the definition a little bit because they don't understand peace of mind very well. So I come up with, for children, the definition that my daughter's trying to hide. For children, it's happiness in your heart and knowing you tried your best. And my daughter says she understands that now. She never did understand that peace of mind. And she's not exactly a child anymore, but she's the prettiest and nicest and most intelligent daughter I have.
Coach, your definition of success led you to your pyramid of success. Could you just share with us some thoughts about your overview of the pyramid and just generally how you came to that?
Well, this definition didn't be, in my mind, wasn't serving the purpose for which I had hoped as well as I had hoped. And I tried to analyze it and determine why, and I came to the conclusion that it's merely because it is a definition. And I thought if you could come up with something you could see, it could probably make a better impression and be more helpful. I didn't know what to do, but I recall from the hidden recess of the mind somewhere I called something I'd seen many years before called a ladder of achievement. Someone had taken a ladder, he had 5 rungs in the ladder, and this person had named each rung of the ladder some particular trait or characteristic that this person felt was necessary to get to the top of the ladder to be, which in one sense or another, that's where we'd all like to get, to the top of the ladder. We might differ on what we consider the top of the ladder to be, but we'd like to get there. We'd like to improve and be better. Of course we would. And I couldn't use a ladder because somebody else had, but it gave me an idea. And I started working on something that I chose to call a pyramid of success. I put at the apex, success, according to my definition. That's where I want to get. Then I built blocks. I had to start. I worked on it for the next 14 years. I completed it when I was teaching at Indiana State University just prior to coming to UCLA. But I knew that any structure, to have any solidity, it must have a strong foundation. And I knew that the cornerstones anchor the foundation. So the first 2 blocks I chose for the pyramid were the cornerstones. One is industriousness, and the other is enthusiasm. You have to work hard. Don't be looking for the shortcut, for the easy way, the trick. You can get by with that for a while, but you'll not be developing the talents that lie within you. Grantland Rice, a great sports writer, wrote something, How to Be a Champion, and he said, you wonder how they do it. You look to see the knack. You watch the foot in action, or the shoulder, or the back. But when you spot the answer where the higher glamours lurk, you will find in moving higher up the laurel-covered spire that the most of it is practice and the rest of it is work. There's another verse or two that say essentially the same thing. I think that's true. But if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you don't have the enthusiasm which brushes off on those with whom you come in contact, you cannot force yourself to work near your own particular level of competency. So enthusiasm is the other cornerstones. I'll briefly tell you something about them. I'll not make it too long, really. I know it's long. Between the cornerstones forming the foundation, I have friendship, loyalty, and cooperation. Now, normally I'd talk a long time on each one of those, but I won't do that. The second tier, I have self-control, alertness, initiative, and intentness. And above that, I have the heart of the structure is condition, skill, and team spirit. Briefly, you must be conditioned for whatever you're doing. You must practice moderation for that. To have desirable physical condition, it must be preceded by mental and moral conditioning. And you must have the skills. You must know what to do. That's not enough. You have to be able to do it, and that's not enough. You better be able to do it quickly. It's just like driving the freeway down here. Angie, driving my daughter and I down here a couple of times. He knew what to do, but if he hadn't been able to do it quickly, we wouldn't be here. And I've had basketball players that they were great shooters, weren't quick, couldn't get any shots, didn't help us. Then I had others who were very quick, get all sorts of shots, but they couldn't shoot. And they didn't help us either. You have to be able to react quickly, just as a surgeon does, just as an attorney does, or they lose out. And then you have to have team spirit, consideration for others. It's a eagerness to lose oneself in the group for the good of the group. I once heard it defined as a willingness, but willingness is not right, because if you're willing to do something, it doesn't mean you want to. You're not going to be enthusiastic about it. If you're eager, you're going to be enthusiastic about it. So it's eagerness to lose self in the group for the good of the group. Be thinking of the group first. It's amazing how much can be accomplished. It's astounding how much can be done if the ultimate call is for one is for all and the credit is reached for by none. It's just getting the job done together. That's the main thing. That's team spirit. Those things led us up to poise and confidence. Poise, just being yourself. Confidence, being prepared. You can't have confidence unless you're prepared. And all those things will make you competitive. They'll make you enjoy it. The last block, competitive greatness. You will enjoy it when it's difficult. If you'd all stop and think, isn't it more fun being involved in something rather difficult than in something anybody else could do, something very easy? And yet most of the things in our daily lives are very easy. Anybody else could do them. But there's no joy in doing those. There's joy in being involved in something more important. Beyond the winning and the goal, beyond the glory and the fame, he feels the flame within his soul, born of the spirit of the game. And where the barriers may wait, built up by the opposing gods, he finds a thrill in bucking fate and riding down the endless odds. Where others wither in the fire or fall below some raw mishap, where others lag behind or tire and break beneath the handicap, he finds a new and deeper thrill to take him on the uphill spin, because the test is greater still and something he can revel in. The competitor enjoys it when it's difficult. From the last block on the pyramid, on one side leading up to the apex on which my definition of success rests, I have patience, and on the other side I have faith. You must have patience. Good things take time. We don't want them to, but they do. Our youth sometimes we consider to be impatient because they want to change so many things. They think all change is progress. But as we get older, sometimes we're content with the status quo. We forget that there is no progress without change. Patience. We must have patience. And we must have faith. We must believe that things are going to work out as they should, providing, of course, we do what we're capable of doing to help that become reality. I believe many times we want things to happen a certain way, but we don't do everything we're capable of doing to help that become reality. We must have faith. If we do the things that we should do, we live the lives we should live, and so on, everything's going to be great. As, who was it, one of them, Conbriar said, so live that when thy summons comes to join that innumerable caravan where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, go not like a quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like who wraps the draperies of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. If you have faith, you believe in things like that, the things will work out as they should, not the way we necessarily want them to.
Unbelievable, Coach. I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I got to shake myself being up here with you. I'm telling you. Tell us about Nell and how you first met your beloved wife.
Nell was really something. My first year in high school, I lived on the farm and commuted 8 miles to this little town of Martinsville. And I saw this little hole. I thought she was cute. But she didn't see me for Adam. She didn't see me for Adam. But that summer, after school was out, of course, I was working on the farm, had me plowing corn with a team, and I just finished a row and then turned to come down another row, and a car drove up on a dirt road not far, and this little gal that I thought had never seen me hopped out of the car. Most me to come over. I wouldn't go. And she got her best friend, whose older brother had this car. The roads weren't too good. It's a gravel road 8 miles up from there, and finally they gave up and drove away. When school started, as I left my homeroom from my first class, as I leave, I go out, there she is, right outside with her friend. She told me, why didn't you come over? We drove all the way up there, 8 miles then on a dirt road. You had to plan ahead. and I said, oh, I was dirty and I was perspiring and you'd have made fun of me. And I can see her today. She said, I would never make fun of you. That's the only girl I ever went with, the only single one. We had 53 wonderful years together before I lost her. she was very supportive in helping me in all ways, in so many ways, and tremendous.
And you and Nell had planned to be married on August the 8th, 1932, but things didn't go quite as planned. Can you share that with us?
Well, after my senior basketball season was over, I did a little barnstorming to make a little money. So I wanted to, we sort of had in our minds that we were going to get married as soon as I graduated and got my degree and got a job. And saved up money for that, and I saved up $909 in a nickel I had in the bank. And on Friday, I went to the bank. The bank closed, and I didn't know. And this Nellie's closest friend, her father was a well-to-do miller, and called me and said, "What are you and Nellie going to do?" This kind of sudden, I don't know. He pushed a letter across and said, "Pay me back when you can." He gave me $200. And so on Sunday, my older brother's girlfriend, her folks had a car, and they drove us 30 miles north to Indianapolis, where Nellie and I were married. And my brother and his girlfriend stood up for us, and the minister's wife. And then we went to the theater. We went to Bamboo Inn, had dinner at the Bamboo Inn. Then we went to theater. I saw the Mills Brothers make their very first appearance in Indianapolis. The very first ones, August 8th, 1932. And you know that when that was, it'll get late, you know. And we'd just been married and been late. It's been a hard day. You know, I was tired and wanted to get to bed. And they just kept singing and singing. People were applauding them, and I would say, well, I think Nellie was applauding them more. But anyway, we stayed in a little hotel that night, got up the next morning and walked, I'd say, about half a mile to a bus station where we caught a bus that left Indianapolis at 6:30. Take us to Martinsville, where my college coach picked me up at 7:30 to take me to southern Indiana, where he was having a coaching clinic, and I was his sort of guinea pig. I got $25 for that, and boy, I needed it. And then came back on Friday, so I left her my first week. But things worked out pretty well at that time. We had 53 wonderful years together.
Well, you and Nell were together 53 years of marriage. And Coach, I'd like you to share with us your thoughts about how young people can keep lifelong commitments. How do you keep a commitment for life?
Well, with true love, you're going to do it. True love, and that's what it should be. True love one for another. It's what we need throughout this troubled world. So I pray for that every day. I'd like to see enduring peace between all nations, and I'd like to see enduring love between all people, regardless of race, religion, or anything else. And I think true love, and you make the commitment to keep the commitment. And you've got to share. Nellie and I tried to not to be disagreeable when we disagreed. We're going to have a place when we disagreed. Of course, we're trying not to be disagreeable, and don't let it carry on. As Mother Teresa said, forgiveness sets you free. Even if something, don't carry it on. Don't let it eat you up. Forgiveness sets you free. One of my players said, well, he had a little problem with me because I didn't play him as much as he thought he should play. And after he graduated, he didn't speak to me for 25 or 30 years. And finally, he called me. And we visited and talked. And I talked to him about, you ought to forgive. You must forgive. And he wrote, he hadn't written, the first poem he ever wrote was, he titled it, Forgiveness Sets You Free, because I'd used that in talking on our reconciliation. He said the last verse is let's see, the answer's there for all to see from our dear coach and Mother T. Just let it go and walk away. Forgiveness sets you free. And sometimes it's easier to forgive than it is to forget. you ought to try to do both.
How about, Coach, you chose to teach. You chose to coach. Why did you do that as opposed to?
Well, I went to Purdue University. I wanted to be a civil engineer. That was my hope. And I didn't know. High school counseling wasn't as good then, obviously, as it is today. And I didn't know to get my degree in civil engineering, I had to go to civil camp every summer. And I couldn't do that. I was going to have to work in the summer. There were no athletic scholarships in those days, and my parents had no financial means to help, and I was going to have to certainly work in the summer. And I didn't find out until the end of my freshman year when they came around, I was going to have some choice of where I would go to civil camp. I'd go, but you get paid, sort of like laboratory work you do in class. And then I knew that I had to change, so I changed to a liberal arts course, majored in English, and I knew from that time on I'm going to teach. And I've never regretted it.
I'll bet. We didn't regret it either, by the way. We were happy you did it. All those great UCLA basketball teams, those national championships, but you had 3 rules for your teams. Can you share that with us today?
Well, in my earlier years, I had a lot of rules and a few suggestions. My later years, that turned around. I had a fewer rules and more suggestions. The 3 that I stuck with pretty much through my time was that I was a stickler for time. I think it had to be the class, it had to be the bus, it had to be at the table, whatever it is. I was a stickler for time. And so be on time was one. And the other one was never criticize a teammate. I'd say that's my job. I'm paid to do it. Pitifully poor, but I am paid to do it. I couldn't say that if I were teaching today. And third was not one word of profanity. I would not permit one word of profanity. If that happened on the floor for practice, you're out of here for the day. Then forget it. Don't start it. When they come back the next day, don't say, you better not say that again. Take care of it. Like your own children at home. Take care of it then, and then don't keep harping on it afterwards. And let's see, is that the 3? No profanity. Be on time and no profanity, and not one word of profanity. Yeah, not one word of profanity. If I catch you profanity in a game, you're coming out. I didn't see how long, but you're going to be out.
So there was a little latitude for some of those guys who were a little better than others.
Well, you must never treat everybody alike, Terry. That shows partiality when you treat everybody alike. They're all different. They don't all need the same treatment. They all don't deserve the treatment. Give them anyone under your supervision, give them the treatment they earn and deserve. Of course, you're imperfect and you'll make mistakes. But if you make too many mistakes, like in my job, I'd have been fired. So they didn't have to worry about me. They did. I make too many. So I think it's important.
Coach, I've heard you say that Abraham Lincoln and Mother Teresa were 2 people that they're 2 of your favorite people, and you learned great lessons from both of them. Could you share that with us?
Well, Abraham Lincoln is my favorite American, and so many things about him. The immortal Gettysburg Address, beautiful, beautiful, more than many volumes. And I think his second inaugural address is wonderful too, with malice toward none, with charity for all, and so many other things that he said. I told Bill Walton the other night when he spoke, I thought at length a little too much. And he quoted me, and he quoted me a lot of Lincoln quotes that I'd used at the time, and I said, Bill, you failed to use one of the Lincoln quotes that's very important. He said, what was that? Well, he said, it's better to keep quiet and let people think you are a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt. You ought to think of that one. But both of them lives were completely devoted for others. Lincoln, the most difficult time in the history of anyone, I think, in our country, when our countries went against each other. And but he never lost his common man approach. He was just at the end of that terrible war between the states, when he was being criticized by the Secretary of State, then you're supposed to talk about retribution. He said, you're supposed to destroy your enemies, not make friends of them. And his answer, of course, was, am I not destroying an enemy when I make a friend of them? And he said, the best thing a father can do for his children is love their mother. He said, the worst thing you can do for those you love are the things they could and should do for themselves. He said, it's better to trust and be disappointed once in a while than to distrust and be miserable all the time. And honey, my daughter, please try to remember that one. You know, there's so many things like that. And of course, Mother Teresa, the same one. If anyone ever, she said, life not lived for others is not a life. And if anyone ever truly lived their life for others, it was Mother Teresa. And I'd say she's the person for whom I have the most respect and admiration that's lived in my lifetime. And Lincoln is my favorite American.
Coach, last question for you. You're in your 97th year. You have some great advice about not looking back. Could you share with us the poem, Don't Look Back?
I'm in my 98th year, Terry.
I apologize for that, Coach.
Well,
Coach, I'm like Bill Walton. I don't listen very good.
I'm only about a month into it, so that's okay. Well, some time ago, I wrote a poem that, for a particular purpose, and I called it Don't Look Back, and said, the years have left their imprint on my hands and on my face. Erect no longer is my walk, and slower is my pace. But there is no fear within my heart because I'm growing old. I only wish I had more time to better serve my Lord. When I've gone to him in prayer, he has brought me inner peace. And soon my cares and worries and other problems cease. He's helped me in so many ways. He's never let me down. Why should I fear the future when soon I could be near his crown? Though I know down here my time is short, my time is endless up there, and he will forgive and keep me ever in his loving care.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only John Wooden. Coach, thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry.
We can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.